I wonder if it's a problem to talk about a conspiracy theory which is now partially confirmed. We stand at this intersection of virology, intelligence, and politics, with the origins of COVID-19 shrouded in a haze of science, speculation, and secretive half revelations. And nearly 5 years after the pandemic emerged, the debate over where the SARS-CoV-2 escaped from the Wuhan Institute of Virology or arose naturally in a wet market continues to rage, fueled by new claims, old suspicions, and a dash of global political theatre. And once dismissed as a conspiracy theory, the lab leak hypothesis has edged closer to mainstream acceptance as the CIA yesterday afternoon joined the FBI and the Department of Energy in asserting quite clearly, albeit with low confidence, that a laboratory origin is the more likely than a natural one. And while this shift doesn't amount to a smoking gun, it reflects a growing willingness among intelligence agencies to assign plausibility to what was politically taboo. That, I think, is the most amazing turnaround. This change in stance comes against a backdrop of circumstantial evidence. The Wuhan Institute of Virology, the world leader in coronavirus research, sits just 20 kilometers from the Huanan wet market, the pandemic's initial epicenter. Coincidence? Critics argue that it stretches credibility and credulity and common sense. The CIA's declassified report avoids definitive conclusions, relying instead on analyses of existing intelligence and scientific data, and it suggests that both research-related and natural origin scenarios remain plausible but leans slightly toward the former. This low-confidence judgment reflects gaps in evidence, contradictions, and the inherent challenges of pinning down the origin of an invisible enemy. What it doesn't say, of course, is that there was any intent. Importantly, the report doesn't implicate China in deliberate bioweapon development, a claim that remains unsupported by credible evidence, and that, of course, was central to a lot of the conspiracy theory nonsense. Instead, the narrative focuses on the possibility of accidental release, a scenario consistent with historical lab safety lapses worldwide. Scientists remain divided, and proponents of the natural origin theory highlight genetic evidence linking SARS-CoV-2 to bat coronavirus, suggesting zoonotic spillover. Critics counter that no definitive intermediate host has ever been identified, and the Wuhan wet market may merely have amplified an existing outbreak rather than sparked it. Shri Zhengli, the so-called Batwoman of the Wuhan Institute, has presented data on dozens of coronaviruses collected from bats, yet none quite match the SARS-CoV-2 closely enough to serve as its immediate ancestor. Her assurances, however, come under scrutiny in a climate of mistrust, where a lack of transparency from Chinese authorities has fueled suspicion. And then we get the intelligence community itself. Unlike virologists, intelligence agents operate with tools designed to access intent and action, not genomes. And their recent conclusion hinges not on groundbreaking discovery, but on patterns, coincidences, and context. And the proximity of the Wuhan lab to the outbreak, combined with its research on coronaviruses, raises eyebrows. In other words, they're not using much more evidence or much more information than the average conspiracy theorist lurking on the other side of the internet. Intelligence agencies and intelligence analysis is not immune to bias. The CIA's shift coincides with political pressures, particularly from figures like John Radcliffe, a vocal advocate for the lab leak theory during his tenure as Director of National Intelligence under Donald Trump. Critics argue that intelligence assessments, like scientific ones, risk being shaped by preconceptions rather than pure evidence. The implications are profound. China vehemently denies the lab leak hypothesis, dismissing it as political manipulation. US lawmakers, meanwhile, have weaponized the theory to push for accountability measures, including reparations and sanctions. And the debate has strained Sino-American relations at a time when China and America should be reaching out to one another at a time of global tension. This further complicates cooperation on global health challenges, and the WHO as well. of course, which Trump says rather grandly he might join in the future. Regardless of the origin, the pandemic exposed vulnerabilities in global health governance, from delayed responses to politicized investigations. The real tragedy lies in the polarization of science and politics, which stifles constructive debate. A real debate is one that is prepared to look at all sides, is prepared to consider all analyses, is prepared to acknowledge our individual biases, and is also prepared to draw conclusions which may not be desirable. So, whether the virus emerged from a bat or a biosafety lapse, understanding its genesis is a critical process in preventing future pandemics. And to hijack this process in the interest of litigation and reparations is the height of stupidity on the part of the US authorities. The height of stupidity. We need to understand this virus in order to prepare ourselves for any future viruses, for any future pandemics. That is more important than getting a few £billion here or a few £billion there to salve our consciences. The origins of COVID-19 remain as elusive today as they were a week ago, despite the CIA report. They are entangled in scientific uncertainty and global intrigue. The CIA's assessment simply adds a layer of nuance but doesn't close the case. If anything, it underscores the need for transparency, rigorous inquiry, and to be utterly cautious of conspiracy theorists who want an easy and a simple solution. An easy and a simple solution doesn't exist. I hope the search for truth transcends the boundaries of politics and prejudice. I really hope so, but at the moment I don't see any evidence of that. And the stakes are huge. Human lives, economies, trust in science. These are the stakes. And at the moment, these are all in question about whether or not any of them continue. Can our human lives actually continue with this level of uncertainty when people actually know the answers? That is the shocking fact. When people know the answers and they're hiding them for some national, international advantage. For what?